As I think most of you here in central Iowa were following, the Des Moines School Board met last night to determine a course of action following a court decision that reaffirmed the details of our Return to Learn plan. The board's action last night was disappointing. While the board voted 4-3 to prepare to implement a hybrid learning model, there's no clear sense of how or when that might happen. Only the district will determine when conditions are safe to do so using a set of metrics that appear to be designed to ensure that they don't come back for in-person learning. So to be clear, Des Moines Public School is no closer to compliance with state law than they were before last night's vote, which is, I think, unfortunate for the students. When Des Moines Public Schools submitted their Return to Learn plan to the state on July 1st, they presented a hybrid plan that was close to being compliant with state law, but instead of working with the Department of Education to get into compliance, the district went backwards. As I've mentioned before, I mentioned this last week, 326 of Iowa's 327 school districts have figured out a way to develop a strong Return to Learn plan that complied with state law. Those districts have been focused on getting kids safely and responsibly back to school, really not looking for ways to avoid that. And as we see every day, those districts are making it work. So, there are things that need to be done differently because we are in a pandemic, but they're showing us that if you have a will, and that they have a will and are finding a way, which is what I hope to see coming from the Des Moines School District as well. Waivers have been granted to 3 school districts to move to online remote learning due to public health conditions in their communities. And I'm pleased that it sounds like maybe Ames will be moving into a hybrid model when their current waiver expires. And Iowa City, whose waiver was extended another 2 weeks, is planning for a possible return to a hybrid learning model even before the end of their extension, as long as public health conditions continue to improve, and we're seeing that trend. Even here in the metro area, West Des Moines Elementary School, which requested a waiver after staff members who tested positive for COVID-19 had exposed other staff, they have withdrew their request. Instead of moving the school to remote learning for 2 weeks, they found a way to move temporarily online this week, and which will allow them and then return full-time next week while remaining in compliance with the 50% in-person learning requirements. Again, I think where there's a will, there's a way. Earlier this week, a number of parents held a press conference to advocate on behalf of the district's most vulnerable students, minorities as well as those with disabilities and behavioral health issues. They strongly encouraged the school board to move ahead swiftly to get students back in the classroom. After all, as the state's largest school district, Des Moines Public School faces some of the biggest challenges, but they also face some of the biggest consequences for further inaction. My message to the parents of Des Moines is that we'll continue fighting for you to get the kids back in the classroom again, safely and responsibly. But now is the time for your voices to be heard, and so I would encourage you to continue to do so. Every court in which our Return to Learn guidelines have been challenged has sided with the state, yet the Des Moines School Board continues to slow walk compliance weeks into the school year at the expense of its 32,000 students. And it's unacceptable.